give it a few minutes for more people to let's give it a few minutes for more people to join.
Pase la voz, pase. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Bienvenidos compañeros, compañeras, inquilinos, inquilinas.
Good evening. Welcome,
Para esta presentación de
friends,
Facebook,
comrades, tenants,
para aprender sobre
to this
cómo
Facebook
la
Live
certificación
stream
de arrendamiento
about
de rentas
how
y
to
también
complete
los
your rent
requerimientos
relief
para
application and also the
calificar para
requirements
este programa.
to qualify for this program.
Vamos a dar unos minutitos para que más compañeros y compañeras se vayan uniendo. Comparta, por favor, el enlace.
Let's take a few minutes for more people to join. Please share the link
¿Cómo estamos
on
ahora?
Facebook
¿Cómo
Live.
estamos sintiéndonos después de esta
How are we
lluvia
feeling
que
after
nos
this
va refrescando?
big refreshing rain that came down?
La lluvia lleva toda las impurezas, toda la basura limpia a nuestra ciudad,
The rain
nuestro
cleans up
hábitat.
our city, takes out the trash. Oh, it cleans up our habitat, takes it out to sea. It might be bad for the fish, but then they'll pay us back for that. Last Saturday, June 5th, was the World Environment Day. After 50 years of observing that day, to remember that this planet is our common home, is one, and that we have to take care to reduce trash, plastic especially. And thanks to all who make an effort to look out for the environment and take care of the environment, which is our shared home. Let's keep sharing the link. We have interpretation into English.
Please select your language, English interpretation. Esta sesión está en español, pero también tenemos la interpretación al inglés.
This session is being transmitted in Spanish, but we also have English interpretation available via Zoom. I don't know how many people are online right now. I don't have access to that number right now, but let's hope that we can get more people to join. Now we're going to be looking at how to complete this rent relief application, and we want to make sure that we cover all the basics for this application to be successful. My name is Angel Vera, and I'm part of the organizing team for Make the Road New York. The rent relief application is open since last Tuesday. I know that there were some difficulties with the system. I know many people are applying, and today we will learn how to submit an effective or a successful application. From the legal team, we have our lawyer, Robert. And we will begin our session. The attendance code for today is it's E821, 821. Maybe Robert can share the slide with that information. So it's important for folks to connect. Please text E821 so we can track what we're doing, stay up to date with what we're doing as an organization, to be able to track the struggles and the fights that we're taking on and the victories that we win collectively. Please send 8821 via text message to 929-410-5280. 929-410-5280. And it's event E821. So please text that to 929-410-5280. And you can also visit www.inquilinosny.org to put in your information, to register with us and stay connected in the struggle. This emergency relief program, we won it after more than a year of fighting for it, and it's $2.4 billion that we want in rent assistance. This fund will help people who are behind in paying their rent, who are impacted by COVID. This fight took over a year. Thanks to all who joined in this fight, people in the coalition. We marched, we made trips, we visited legislators, we held meetings, we held protests, calls, phone banking, and we finally got this big victory, which we won thanks to the fight in the streets. This is not a present, it's not a gift from Governor Cuomo. It's really a victory that we won thanks to the strong collective work that we've been doing. So we'll be helping to fill these applications out, but there are also other organizations that will do so. Robert will explain briefly, but perhaps the quickest thing, the most direct thing is to fill it online from your homes. So Robert's gonna guide us through how to complete this ERAP, ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program application. Go ahead, Robert. Thank you. Thank you, Angel, and thank you all for joining us in this meeting, in this workshop. I'm glad to have you here. Vamos a hablar del programa ERAP, que es el programa, it's the ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program.
Recordemos también que podemos como poner en el chat desde ya las preguntas que vamos teniendo.
Remember that if you have questions come up, you can put them in the chat bar. We know we have more than 200 people connected tonight. If you have questions as they come up, put them in the chat box. So let's talk about it. What is this program? It's a state program which will make a payment covering up to 12 months of rent arrears as of March 2020 when the pandemic was declared. You can also apply for an additional 3 months of future rent if you can demonstrate that you pay 30% of more of your income on rent. So if your rent burden, and you can also, as of March 13th, you can also apply for assistance with money you may owe for utilities. It's important to know that some locations in New York are not participating in the state program and they have their own individual programs. I think we have members in Yonkers, Islip, and Hempstead. where ERAP is not happening. These aren't for you. There's a different application to complete with the with the local government there. We have, in Long Island, we have organizers, Rodman Serrano, Javier Guzman, and Eliana Fernandez that can support you in Long Island. And if you're in Yonkers, you can connect with Jennifer Ulloa. But as for the five boroughs in New York City and Westchester and Nassau County, you can apply for ERAP. Eligibility. A family must have an income that's 80% or less of the AMI. And as of March 2020, a member of the household should have received unemployment benefits, had a reduction in their income, or had significant expenses or suffered other economic hardship directly or indirectly related to the pandemic. The applicant is obligated to pay rent at his primary or her primary residence and is supposed to pay that rent. And you are at risk of suffering instability or rent housing insecurity, which you can prove by a letter from the landlord. You can see the amounts of the AMI, the area median income. For New York City, if you have a family of four in Queens, you should earn less than $95,450. That's quite high a number, so plenty of people should qualify. Long Island, it's 94,000. Westchester is 90,000. We hope that you can qualify. There's a link to check those AMI levels in other parts of the state. There's also a priority given during the first 30 days, so from June 1st to June 30th, where families or households with a 50% of the AMI income and if at least one member of the family is a veteran, a victim of domestic violence or human trafficking, has a case pending in court, lives in a community that's been disproportionately affected, and you can check in that link. There are many of those communities, or if you live in a building with less than 20 apartments or mobile home. So if the family is earning less than 50% or less of the AMI and one of the bullet points, you'll be in the priority list if you apply before the end of June. 50% of the AMI for New York City, a family of four, anywhere in New York City, it's $59,000. If you earn less than this, you'll get priority. Westchester and Long Island is a little less, but it's close. And that's until June 30th. Payments. How does it work? The payments go directly to the landlord or the utility company. The applicant will receive confirmation of the amount that was paid on their behalf. If the landlord does not cooperate, cannot be located, or does not accept the funds will be held for 180 days to give the landlord a chance to get it. At the end of this period, the tenant will receive a letter stating that the state tried to pay that debt and that they may not be evicted, and right. So that letter will serve as a defense for the tenant if the landlord should come later. How to apply? There are three main ways. One is to do it on your own, to do it online. You can also call the state hotline, and that's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. And that's 1844 NY1 rent. So that's 844-691-7368. And that's also on the program's website. And another option is to complete your application with an organization that received funding from the state to help with this process. I think there are 12 organizations that received contracts from the state to help with the applications. Here is the list of the organizations that got a contract. So you should not pay anybody to help you with this program. In Brooklyn, for example, we're partnering with Riceboro, which is the fourth on the list. Their number is here too, in case you want to call them. If you want to make a note of, in Queens, we have Riceboro as well, and Catholic Charities, and Staten Island, Project Hospitality, Bronx Works, and NICA in the Bronx. So you can contact these organizations to help them for them to help you and complete the application. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to help everybody that needs help with this. So in order to fill your application, if you received a notice of demand for rent, a 14-day notice, which is a court paper letting you know that there's an eviction case underway, there's a notice of eviction or petition from housing court with a case number, contact information of the landlord, name, phone number, or email. Name of family members, very important. You do not need, there's no relevance of immigration status. You can use an ITIN as well, a tax ID number. And if you don't have that, we can still work through it. Documents that are related to monthly payments like Section 8, HUP, or other benefits for public housing, shelter payments, etc. And then if you owe for utilities, you need the information on utilities, account number, and the number amount owed. Program requirements. For IDs, you need a personal ID for all members of the family. Could be a passport, a driver's license, state ID, birth certificate for minors. That could be school records for children. If you have a social security number, if you have it, you should give it. Proof of the amount, that's proof of rent amount, that would be your lease, for example. It doesn't matter if the lease expired, if it's still the same amount. Or it could be your canceled checks, etc. If you don't have any proof of your rent, you can also self-attest, which would mean you write a letter and sign it saying this is how much you pay a month. Also proof of that this is your primary residence. So that could be your lease, a rent receipt, a utility bill, your ID if it's in order, bank account, bank mail, etc. And finally, proof of income. That could be your tax, your 1040 form, or it could be your payroll, your check stubs as well, but it has to be from the last month. It can't be an older one. And if you don't have any of that, you can also self-attest in a side document that says how much you're earning at the time. So there are 4 types of documents that you have to present. 1, ID, then proof of residence, The third one is proof of rent. So your lease or receipt. And the fourth one is the proof of income, which could be your taxes, your pay stubs, etc. Before you begin, remember that this program will not save your application when it's in process. So once you start applying, you have to complete it. It won't save your information when you're halfway there, and you can come back the next day to complete it. So make sure that you have all your information ready, because you have to include all your family members, not just you. So make sure you have all your information together before you begin. So now we're going to make a pretend or a safe practice application. I go to the website, which was in the presentation at the beginning. You can select the language at the top in the drop down. So now we've selected Spanish for the application, and we go to submit your application. First, I made sure I had all my documents ready for my family. I have all my information before starting, so I won't have to do it again. Here's the helpline number. If you need help, to call that number. This application has several pages. We'll have to go through each one. There's the applicant information, hardship, COVID-19, household members, income, rent, rent arrears, services. Yeah, that means utilities. If you are receiving rent assistance currently or previously, because you can't double dip or you can't apply for assistance that you've already received elsewhere from another program. And you also have to certify everything. You mustn't give any false information because that could cause problems. And finally, upload documents. So I'll start by putting my information in here. I'm doing this alone, so they ask you, are you doing this for someone else? No. I put my name in. I put this, our office address, but let's pretend it's email. It's very important to put in your email address and phone number because you will receive notifications that way and confirmation that way. Social security number, I'll say I don't have one. Do you have another type of ID? Maybe I have a driver's license or another other government issued ID. I'll say none. English for language, race, white. I'll say not Hispanic. Are you renting? Are you currently renting? Yes. Are you currently renting? Yes. What are the terms? You could say I have an annual lease, a month to month, other agreement. When did the lease end? I said, I'll say it ends at the end of 2021. I'll say I'm currently employed. Are you a student full-time? No. Did you file taxes? I'll say yes. If you didn't file taxes, you can say no. I'll say I won 25,000 last year because of the pandemic. You could designate an emergency contact here. So if the person that's completing the application cannot answer questions, you can give a name of an emergency contact that would be able to answer. That was the first page. Oh, date of birth, right? If anything's missing, it won't go through. So I'll put in date of birth, gender, save. Great, I just got past the first page. Up here is the application number. Write it down. Don't lose it because this is your application number. If you have to present other documents, if you have to respond to any kind of mail about it, you must use this number. So after that first page, you get this application number and write it down and save it in a safe place for when you need it. Pandemic hardship. So you should have received unemployment benefits or loss of employment or an increase in expenses because of the pandemic. Did you get unemployment benefits? Let's say no, you didn't apply. So they'll say, how were you affected by the pandemic? We have to say reduction in income or increase in expenses, salary reduction, or hours were reduction in hours, and increase in expenses. Please check all that apply. So it's, I had to buy masks for my family, and that affected my capacity to pay rent. Could be medical expenses, remote work. Say I had to buy a computer, medical attention, funeral costs, alternative transportation method. If you worked at night and there was no subways, then you had to take Uber, and that's an extra expense, for example. Verify if the following circumstances or categories apply to you or a family member. I currently have a case in court, or are you a veteran? Are you a survivor of human trafficking or domestic abuse? Are you facing eviction? When did you get the notice of rent arrears from the landlord? Has there been a court hearing? So you have to put the index number here. If you say, no, I don't have a case yet, I just got the notice. So we'll save that. Second page, and then we go to page 3. Household members. Whoever you live with, could be a roommate, could be your family. If you have a roommate, you can both apply as a household together, or your roommate can apply that the state pay the main tenant. But in this case, I just live with my partner. So there are 3 of us. There's myself, my partner, and my child. I have to input the information for all 3. To make it faster, I'll say there are 2 of us. Save. Oh, so you have to click on add members so you can enter the information. We'll put a fake name, Jane Doe, date of birth. Partner could be a child, could be another adult. Does this member have a social security number? No. Other ID, you could choose driver's license, whatever. Let's say no. Race, you can just write other race, mixed. And you need an email and phone number for that family member because the state will contact this person so they can verify this information for their address and phone number. So we could just make up a number here, but you have to at least include a contact number or email. Could be your own phone number or email, but that person will have to verify the status of this person. Unemployed, she a student? No. Is this person filed taxes for 2020? We'll say yes. I'll say no. If you say yes, then you would have to say which form was filed. So recap, my household is myself and one other member. So save that. And once again, here's my application number. Now we go to the fourth page, which is income. Is any member of the household, does any member of the household have income? Remember that public assistance, SNAP, HEAP benefits, things like that, child support. You have to say the truth. If you're receiving any of these public programs, you have to tell the truth. Jendo has no income, so I will just add income from me. Type of income, let's say employment, frequency weekly, I'll say 480 a week. And that's it. I don't have to say anything else. It could be, your income could be listed under whatever schedule you get it in, monthly, weekly. Now we're at the rent page. Here is the address of the property where I live. When did your lease begin? And sometimes you don't have a lease and you're just paying month to month. But I would say it started on January 1st, 2020, and I pay $1,000 a month. It's an apartment with one bedroom. Is it rent regulated? Yeah, I live in a rent regulated, not rent controlled apartment. Could be Mitchell-Lama, public housing, NYCHA, or subsidized Section 8. Or it could be none of the above, but it's rent regulated. Uh, you rent, you say if you rent the whole unit, or you sublet from another main tenant, or you rent a room from the owner, from the landlord. So it's important to have this contact information because the state will contact to fact check. Right, so this says first name, last name, but if it's a company, the state has said you can just write it as Grove LLC. Address, then you're going to put down the landlord's address. In this case, the landlord lives in the same building. The email, and you have to put in the information because the landlord will be contacted to check their information so they can send them the money. If you don't have their email address, you can at least give their phone number. As I said before, if the landlord does not cooperate, if the landlord cannot be located, if they're out of state, or if they out of the country, or if they don't want to cooperate, then they won't receive these funds. But after 180 days of that funding being held by the state, you will get a letter stating that they may not try to collect that funding from you. Here's my rent information, hit save. Now we're on page 5, rent arrears. This program is for back rent from March 13th, 2020 till the present. It doesn't matter if you owed money before. This is only applicable to rent you owe since March 2020. So for each month, I have to enter how much is the monthly rent. And this, the amount you owed.
Poner la renta mensual es $1,000. Ok. Ángel, ¿una pregunta? Disculpa, no sé bien la traducción. ¿Monto vencido quiere decir lo que pagué o lo que debo?
I'm not really sure if monto vencido is, it's the amount owed. Let's say if rent was $1,000 and I paid 500, so if we keep filling that out, you have to say that for every month. Let's say that I started paying for everything, like paying in full after September. And you have to list each month, and the state will verify for each month if that's accurate or not. And you'll also they will verify the information, so you don't have to, so you shouldn't give wrong information, incorrect information. So we're up to May, June, etc.
Pagar todo en septiembre.
And as of September, I started paying everything.
Esta solicitud más o menos tiene 1 hora para completarlo.
This application takes approximately about an hour to complete it. We're going faster because we're not submitting the documents, but you should be ready. You should expect for it to take an hour at least. So I put here that I paid half of the rent until August, and then I was able to pay the full rent, which means I owe $3,000. If anyone needs help for future rent with my income, if I'm paying more than 30% of my income on rent, I can qualify as being rent burdened. So I'll say yes. How many months of future assistance will you need? I'll say 3 months. You can request up to 3 months. So we'll save. And then we'll go to the utilities page. If anyone needs help with utilities, heat, gas, electricity. Is someone paying heat separately? It's included. No, it's included for me. What about gas and heat?
Ok.
So I owe National Grid.
Vamos a hacer que la electricidad, yo no debo electricidad, la luz está apagada.
Let's say
Debo gas.
electricity is paid up, but I do owe them for gas. So we have to find
Ciudad de Nueva York,
the company in New York City.
National Grid, pero el nombre legal
National Grid is
es Brooklyn Union Gas.
the company,
Buscar aquí,
and it changes in different areas of New York.
recuerden eso, Brooklyn Union Gas.
Y
Okay.
entonces, so in Brooklyn is Brooklyn Union Gas.
Hay que pedir la compañía de National Upstate, pero no, estamos en NYC. ¿Dónde está? Ok. Vamos a search. No, no vamos a hacer esto porque se puede pedir la solicitud. Sí, mira, yo traté de buscar algo y salió. Entonces, ten cuidado, trata de enfocar en la solicitud y no ir a otras páginas y todo porque se puede pedir. Ok.
Yeah, so try not to be careful that you don't run any searches while on this page because it could exit you from the application and you could lose it.
The Brooklyn Union Gas Company.
Here it is. It's the Brooklyn Union Gas Company
DBA National Grid. Esa es la compañía que da
doing business as DBA National Grid. That's the company that gives gas to
no sé cuántas
parts of New York City.
funciona. Bajo el nombre está la factura. So, yo pago el gas, está mi nombre. Ok, tengo que poner mi nombre aquí.
It's under whose name? Here's my name. Here's the account number. They will verify with the company the account balance. So once again, you have to list for each month how much was the balance and how much did you pay. To make it easy, we'll say it was 100. Maybe it's more in the winter and it's less in the summer. So you have to put the amount that was your balance for that month's bill. I'll say, look, I paid nothing until September when I came back to work. And then I started paying the whole thing. So with all this for each month. So I'm asking for assistance from March from 2020 till August 2020, where I paid none. So now we're on the page of current and previous rent assistance, rent relief.
La asistencia será la cantidad que usted paga, como la porción del inquilino, ¿no? No van a pagar otra parte.
So if you're asking for relief, it's for the part of the rent that you pay, not for the other part. You may have to show proof of the amount that you pay of your part of the rent. If you live in subsidized federal or state subsidized housing, like NYCHA, for example, if you answer yes, you have to give the amount. Is your rent calculated according to your income? So say 30%. From March 2020, have you received Section 8 HUPWA or another public housing benefit? You say yes or no. Type of programs, public housing, Section 8. Housing choice program. When did your benefits begin? And you put in that date. How much do you pay or any member of the household? So if my rent was 1,000, I pay 900. You must report all information on benefits because they will check. There's other types of assistance you may have relieved during the pandemic, like last summer's rent relief program, FAMS, SCREE for rent freeze for seniors, or DREE for people with disabilities. You have to say yes or no to give the correct information. So let's say I got some rent relief. So they will connect with that agency and verify. If someone outside of your household is paying your rent, I'll say no. We're almost at the end. Communication preferences are the best way to reach you. It can be email, text message, or mail. Obviously, it's easiest to get electronic email and choice of language Spanish. Do you need an interpreter? I'll say yes, just to play it safe. And do you need an alternative format? I'll say no. So we save, and now we're at the certification of applicant. It's not very complicated, but we'll briefly look at some of the things it says. Basically, pre-certification, this is saying this is my main address and I owe rent for the apartment. The information I gave is true and correct. Myself or members of my household suffered an economic impact, hardship because of the pandemic. I did not receive relief or assistance for the amount of rent I'm requesting. If I'm requesting this amount, it means that no other program gave me support for this amount. Myself or other household members suffered a reduction in income, unexpected expenses, or some other pandemic impact. So we're certifying, we're not lying at all in this application. Certification also says that you understand that the state will verify and can investigate this information and that we're giving our consent for that. If the state asks for other information, further information, I agree to comply. I understand that if I don't give my information completely and the state finds that I am doing something incorrect or something undue, I have to return any relief that was disbursed or assigned. And I have to agree that I will comply and help the state to fact check and investigate these numbers, and that I am signing electronically. And this is, it's a legal signing that I am not lying. That's what it says. You can read the long text version, but that's basically, so I hereby do attest that the information I've given is complete and truthful, and you type in your name and that counts as your electronic signature, and it says your application is not yet complete. So what do I have to do? Now we have to upload documents. So you can go to we'll choose what type of documents we want to upload. Like I said earlier, there's 4 types of documents. Your ID, proof of residence, that's your primary residence, how much rent is, and your income. Let's just give one example. We'll send a proof of income. Let's say where I work, I earn cash, I don't get receipts, I don't stubs, I don't get taxes. So you can declare zero income if you don't have any. Oh, you don't have to give all of these. These are choices. These are your options on what to present. Self-attestation, photo ID, W-9 form.
Ok, solo se puede subir un documento a la vez. No se puede subir los
You
tres.
can only upload one document at a time, not the whole set.
Vamos a ver. Yo tengo esa documentación. Tengo mi declaración de renta. Vamos a subir
I have
declaración de renta. Está ahí.
my rent declaration
No soy un robot.
or attestation. I check that you're not a robot and upload. But I'm not going to click upload because I want to present a false application, but that's how it would work. You have to have IDs. Proof of residence. You also have to have proof that you live there and increase like income. If you don't have a lease, proof of rent, you can self-attest about the amount of rent. So we wrote this, for example. So here I wrote date. My name is my principal residence. I hereby declare that I paid an amount in rent each frequency. This can work if you don't have rent receipts or anything else. Obviously, it'll be easier if you get proof from the landlord in the form of a letter or a receipt, but this is the application. So you should submit the required documents. We'll stop here. For each family member, they'll each receive a text or an email where they have to verify that their information is correct. It's a little complicated, but the state will send it to them based on the information that you gave. So let's see if I can show where this is done. On the main page at the beginning of the application, there's one area that says verification of adult household members. You can click on it from that page. They ask you for your application number. Remember that number I pointed out earlier? So here's that number. And the number of the person enters her name and click that she's not a robot, and then you're verified. Each adult household member will receive some kind of message asking them to do this. That's why it's very important to have the application number. So I will stop here. Thank you very much, Roberto. Thank you all who are here connected with us. And let's remember to send the code, the attendance code to 929-410-5280. So that's the Make the Road New York attendance number. And so text E821 to that number to show that we were connected and sharing the fight and the mission of Make the Road New York. Make the Road New York's is to build, mission is to build power in immigrant and working communities in New York to win respect and dignity. So we'll go to the Q&A time. And we're trying to group the questions to make them easier. So there are questions like if I borrowed that money, if I asked my family for that money, does that count? No, you must owe the rent. If you borrowed it from someone else, it doesn't qualify. And someone else says, I only owe utilities, but the rent is up to date. So no, you would not qualify either because one of the requirements is to owe rent to qualify for the utility assistance. But you could try and apply for HEAP, which is another available program in New York. So let's see if we can group the questions around landlords. There's a question that says the landlord does not want to cooperate with this. Another one says the landlord thinks that it will harm their credit. The landlord's asking if they have to pay tax on this. Another one says, what will they ask the landlord? Does the landlord also have to apply? What is the process of what the agency is going to ask the landlord? So those are several questions in the topic of landlords. If the landlord does not want to cooperate, the state will try to make that funding arrive to communicate with the landlord. After 180 days, if the landlord does not accept the money, then the tenant will receive a letter saying that the state provided funding for this debt for 12 months of rent and the landlord refused it. So in the future, the tenant can show that letter to prove that they don't owe rent. About the landlord paying taxes on income, yes, the landlord would have to sign this. Money comes from the state. It's not cash. It's a payment from the state. And the landlord would be responsible for filing taxes on income. But that's not a reason for the tenant to not ask for it. Because if the landlord refuses that relief, the tenant gets a letter that protects them. And this is not a public assistance benefit like SNAP. The landlord can also apply on behalf of the tenant. They can start the application, then the state will contact the tenant. We recommend that the tenant, it's better for the tenant to start the application because the landlord might lie. The landlord might say, don't worry about it, I'll apply for you, and then they don't. So I would recommend, in my opinion, is that don't think about how it will affect to the landlord. It's not anything bad. It's help to pay for a debt. And if it's not accepted by the landlord, you will get a letter that will be as good as a receipt that the rent was paid. Thank you, Robert. There are a couple of questions asking if you could qualify for the excluded workers fund. To quickly respond, these are very different programs. And just like with the rent relief, your immigration status doesn't apply, doesn't matter. The excluded workers fund is only for undocumented people, and it's on a federal level.
Of lost income due to COVID-19 if the person is undocumented, not eligible unemployed.
Pregunta, ¿cómo puedes mostrar si alguien es indocumentada? ¿Cómo puede mostrar que no tuvo empleo? ¿Cómo puede demostrarse una... Yeah, how can you prove loss of income? In this program, you don't have to prove the amount of income lost. You just have to certify and say that you lost hours of work, or you had a salary cut, or a business closed, but you don't have to give evidence. You don't have to give a proof from or a letter from the employer. You only have to say the amount of rent for each month and how much you paid for each month. And if you owe rent, you may qualify for this program. And the state can pay what you owe. So don't worry about finding documents for monthly income. Just to say what your income is based on taxes, or your statement for the last month, or pay stub for the last month, because you have to establish that you're earning less than 80% of the AMI. And if you win less than 50% of the AMI, you get priority this first month. Another question about income. Several people are applying. Someone says that I live with 6 people. I said 6 people live with me, but it won't accept it, and it doesn't let me go to the next page because of the number of people entered. So it has to be you plus the people you live with. So that would be 7. And you have to enter the information for each person. Maybe you didn't enter all the information for each one, or someone's date of birth. So I think name, date of birth, and contact number or email for the family members. And on another page, you put income. And I can't answer why that's happening necessarily, but please make sure that name, date of birth, email, and phone number is entered. Another question from Sonia. I applied online and it was never processed. It said I was missing one document. I uploaded it and they never responded. I would recommend in this case to call the helpline from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the number is 1-844 691 7368. So that's the call center for customer assistance. And remember that you can't start an application and save it and finish. If you don't complete the application in one sitting, you have to start over from the beginning. And here's another question for Janet Marie. Andrea Serrano says, what can I do if I'm only renting a room? If you're just renting a room and you're renting a room from a main tenant, you can apply as if the main tenant was the landlord, because that person has a lease on the whole apartment and they're renting an apartment to you. So in this section for landlord, you can put the contact information for the main tenant. Another option, if you have a good relationship with the main tenant, is to apply together. Those are two options. Pati Juarez says, how long do they take to respond if they approved the application? And also, if you qualify, how long would it take to send the amount to the landlord? I don't have an answer to that. This program started on June 1st. After June 30th, any non-prioritized people can apply. That's first come, first served. I don't know if Angel has information about the turnaround time for disbursement. No, they haven't. The agency has not published that information. Jose Frias says, how do I finish my application? He can't see if he finished or not. As I said before, the application will not save your information once you start, but if you don't finish. Oh, I forgot to mention, at the beginning of your application, you can register, get a username, and supposedly you can register, and supposedly you can come back in the future to re-access your application. At the beginning, you can make a username, create a password, and in the future, you'll be able to see the application. But right now, you can't do it. Magdalena Cabrera says, who can help me fill the application out? I don't own a computer and I don't know how to use one. So we have the list of organizations in each county and each borough that are there to help. You can call, or I'll give that general number again for customer assistance. That's 1-844-691-7368. Call that number and tell them, I live in Brooklyn. Can you give me the numbers of the organizations that are helping near me? Another option, if you live in New York City, is call 311. And also ask, and you can also have application organizations that will help in Westchester on Long Island. My application says pending application. Does that mean I submitted it successfully? I don't know, because when I completed it, it said it had been submitted. When in doubt, in all these cases, you can call the call center, the helpline at 844-691-7368, and that's from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m.
Álvarez dice, excelente explicación, clara y precisa, gracias.
Excellent explanation, very clear and precise. Someone asked if the lease is in my wife's name, but the W-2 with tax information is in my name. Is that a problem? So that's for the income. Exactly, that's the W-2 is for income. While the lease is in the name of the wife, the W-2 on taxes is in the husband's name. So each family member has to enter their income. You have to enter income for each member of the household. And there's also an issue if there's a question where you can check off if you filed taxes jointly or independently, individually. But yes, you have to tell of each income for each family member. Jose Frias asked, if I have Section 8, can I apply? Yes, you can apply, and they'll look at the amount of the subsidy you receive. And finally, a question from Helen.
How can you prove you live somewhere if you are not on the list?
Okay, so prueba de que uno vive en
How
un
can you
lugar.
prove that you live somewhere if you're not on the lease? All right, that would be a valid ID, a piece of mail from a school, from a utility company, gas company, from your internet company, from your phone company. That's proof of address. If you don't have that, if you're subletting a room, for example, a letter from the leaseholder, from the main tenant. Well, thank you very much, Robert. Thank you for all the information. Thank you for everybody who participated today. Let's not forget to send to 929-410-5280, send E189 as your attendance code. And let's remember that this rent relief will help so many people, tens of thousands throughout the state. So let's keep communicating, let's keep in touch in Queens and Brooklyn and Westchester, all around with organizers. If you want to get involved in this struggle with the fight for respect and dignity for immigrants and workers. Thank you all very much and have a great evening.